On camera, she laughed while she badgered her staff. And so all good things must end. And also the Ellen DeGeneres show. Yes, the 83-year-old entertainer just announced that the upcoming 19th season of her show will be its last. Apparently, she created a workplace more toxic than an Amazon warehouse in Chernobyl. Countless allegations surfaced last summer that the show's work environment was rife with harassment and discrimination. Following those charges, Ellen's ratings dropped faster than Kevin Spacey's pants at a boy band pool party.
It led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person. And all these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person. So she eventually got canceled, but now she's coming back. She's got a Netflix special. That's the right response.
Once upon a time in Hollywood, there was no bigger symbol of daytime joy than Ellen DeGeneres. She danced, she laughed, she gave away giant checks like it was Monopoly money. Everyone loved her. But behind that million-dollar smile was a secret so uncomfortable, it cracked the entire illusion. Staffers whispered about rules that felt more like military orders: no eye contact, no casual hellos, just silent fear behind the scenes of the so-called kindest show on TV. One staff member's story hit especially hard. He said his sister worked on the show, and she wasn't even allowed to look at Ellen in the hallway. Think about that. A show about kindness, hosted by someone whose presence sent people hiding around corners. People were crying in green rooms, walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing.
It was just the excuse. She is, Emily, I watched her comedy special. It was like a huge pity party. It was about how she was lamenting how her reputation has suffered. She's essentially as popular as a pit bull with monkeypox. But she's putting this on Trump. Do you think that she's going to be, just everybody's going to love her in England?
All while the cameras captured Ellen hugging celebrities and handing out blenders to strangers. The contrast was insane. Then the house of cards started to fall. Article after article came out, exposing how her set wasn't just unfriendly, it was toxic. Not in the gossipy way, but in the "this is ruining lives" kind of way.
I have a question for you on this. This is perfect for you. Because I'm seeing this week that there is an attempted comeback by somebody who did not cross one of those fateful lines of the misstepping on their sacred cows of gender or race or sexuality.
Yeah.
But she was said to be a nasty biatch, and that's Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
So her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, oh, I had this birthday party, and Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, like, no, I did invite you, Ellen. That's not what happened. And Ellen had blown her off and then tried to play the victim on the set with her. Anyway, it led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person.
The image of Ellen being this lovable, silly talk show queen, it shattered fast. And it wasn't just gossip. It was staffers, insiders, even celebrity guests hinting that something wasn't right. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now let's continue.
So Ellen and her wife, Portia, have left their millionaire haven of Montecito for England. Now they're saying they'll never come back in the wake of Trump's win. Do you think that's the reason why she's leaving?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, Ellen got canceled for real a few years ago from just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like a single comment she said or something she did, just lots of people saying that working for her was a living nightmare and that she's a jerk.
When the truth started spilling out, the silence from Hollywood was deafening. Not a single A-lister rushed in to defend Ellen. The same stars who once laughed on her couch and danced across the stage suddenly vanished. Why? Because they knew. They'd heard the same whispers. They'd seen the cold behind the cameras, but no one wanted to be the first to say it out loud until the walls were already coming down. Here's where things got messier.
And I think also
I'm
to
just
admit
like,
your
of
mistakes.
all people on earth to be feeling sorry for herself, Ellen DeGeneres should not be on the list.
She should at least, but make a real apology and do it.
There's no apology. It's just woe is me. I was run out of Hollywood as she speaks from this grandiose stage on Netflix. Hello, you haven't been canceled if you are doing a Netflix special. She got $20 million for the one before this. I'm sure she's fine.
While the public was still stunned, Megyn Kelly stepped in and didn't hold back. She didn't just criticize Ellen, she ripped through the entire system that protected her. Megyn pointed out how media outlets gave Ellen a pass because she was a liberal darling, a lesbian icon, and a daytime sweetheart. If any conservative woman had even a fraction of the same allegations, Megyn argued, they'd be dragged into court, not gifted a Netflix special. She asked the hard questions. Why did everyone look the other way for so long? Why did nobody speak up until it was too late? And most of all, why is it that bad behavior only seems to matter depending on who you are, not what you've done?
Ellen told the Today Show, home of Matt Lauer, that the bad press actually had nothing to do with her decision. Right, and the Titanic didn't hit an iceberg. It chose to sink.
If it was why I was quitting, I would have not come back this year. I really did think about not coming back because it did, it was devastating. I am a kind person. I am a person who likes to make people happy.
No, the real reason, she says, is it was just too easy. Telling the Hollywood Reporter, quote, when you're a creative person, you constantly need to be challenged. And as great as this show is, and as fun as it is, it's just not a challenge anymore. Well, if that's true, here's an idea. When your viewership is down 43%, why not consider that the challenge?
It wasn't just Ellen being exposed. It was the entire machinery of Hollywood, the agents, the producers, the media outlets, all of them who smiled and nodded while knowing full well what was happening backstage. For years, they protected her because she had the right politics and pulled the right ratings. But once the mask slipped, they didn't defend her. They disappeared. And then came the moment that truly cracked Ellen's polished image in front of million-sure awkward icy interview with Dakota Johnson.
Gonna let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows. Nastiness, that's their bread and butter.
Well, I think everyone, I will say, like, the resentment, I think everyone should have a chance for reconciliation. I don't think Jesus exempted anybody. And so I do, while it does, because I have been allowed back in, but I don't hold any grievance and resentment. It's very important. And I would just say for Ellen, the resentment, you have to know, you have to get over resentment to whatever addiction or addictive qualities happen. To get over it, you have to deal with resentment and address it. And then otherwise you're going to fall back into the same pattern.
It was supposed to be lighthearted, but instead, it turned into a public disaster. Ellen joked that she hadn't been invited to Dakota's birthday party, but Dakota didn't play along. She looked her straight in the eye and said, "Actually, I did invite you. You just didn't show up." You could feel the tension through the screen. Ellen tried to smile it off, but the damage was done. That clip went viral overnight, and not because it was funny. People finally saw the cracks. Ellen wasn't the sweet, goofy host Annie Moresh looked like someone trying to guilt-trip a guest on national television and failing. It was petty. And more than that, it exposed something deeper. The manipulation, the control, the need to always look like the victim.
Oh, she was like, well, that's my time. Later, Marks, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they just leave them behind to go.
Yeah, they don't have the choice. They must stay in the hell of Trump. We're out of here. By the way, Walter.
I think we could let the illegal aliens stay if we get enough of Hollywood to self-deport.
Yes. I will take 1,000.
You know, exactly.
I'll take 1,000 Venezuelan migrants for one share.
Exactly.
From there, it was a landslide. Stories poured in from former staffers and insiders saying, "Yep, that's who she really is." People who once stayed quiet now felt safe enough to speak. And the narrative changed. Ellen wasn't being unfairly attacked. She was finally being held accountable. It was clear now that the problem wasn't just a bad day or one wrong interview. It was a pattern, a culture. And it had gone unchecked for years, propped up by fame, money, and a smile that was never as warm as it looked. While Ellen's image was going up in flames, Megyn Kelly wasn't done. She didn't just call out Ellen, she went after the entire Hollywood system that had helped cover up the mess for so long. Megyn didn't tiptoe around anything. She stormed in like a wrecking ball, tearing apart the carefully constructed PR fantasy that had protected Ellen for years. She called out the hypocrisy.
If Trump is truly responsible for Ellen's exodus, shouldn't that go down as his greatest achievement in the last 8? I mean, he should get the Nobel Prize.
He's literally going to have a who's who of left. I mean, the entire 80s music catalog is gone. You got Springsteen, Cher, Madonna. I just don't know why they keep showing pictures of Aaron Rodgers with blonde hair.
Plain and simple, if Ellen wasn't a beloved liberal figure, if she wasn't viewed as a cultural symbol of niceness and progress, there's no way she'd still have a platform. Megyn compared it to a media protection racket where, if you say the right things and support the right causes, the media will ignore your bad behavior, no matter how harmful it is behind the scenes. While Ellen was quietly relocating to England and claiming her exit had nothing to do with the backlash, Megyn rolled her eyes and asked the obvious, if it wasn't because of the bad press, why did her show's ratings crash by nearly half? Why did no one want to work there anymore? Why did fans start tuning out? Megyn's approach was cold and sharp, but effective. She wasn't just reacting, she was demanding answers. Who allowed this to continue? Why didn't anyone speak up earlier? And why, even after all the evidence, was Ellen still being treated with sympathy instead of accountability? For Megyn, it wasn't just about Ellen, it was about a broken system that only holds people responsible when it's convenient. But Megyn wasn't the only one ready to tear through the fairy tale. Enter Greg Gutfeld, TV's favorite late-night troublemaker with a smirk and zero filter. While Megyn dissected the hypocrisy with a scalpel, Greg came in swinging a chainsaw. And he didn't just mock Ellen, he practically turned her downfall into a comedy special of his own. Greg didn't buy Ellen's pity parade for 1 second. While she stood on a fancy Netflix stage talking about how devastated she was, he pointed out the obvious: she wasn't canceled. Not even close. She was still raking in millions. Just her last Netflix deal alone? $20 million? Yeah, she was really suffering. But what made Greg's takedown different was how he painted Ellen's whole brand as a twisted performance. He said her show wasn't a feel-good talk show, it was more like a haunted funhouse. Smiles up front, horror backstage. He even joked that working there was like a boot camp run by Satan's favorite intern. Fake empathy, forced joy, and a workplace so tense even the potted plants were stressed. To him, Ellen wasn't just mean. She was the Disney animatronic gone rogue, smiling on cue, dancing for applause, and quietly scaring the life out of her crew behind the scenes. While everyone else tried to frame her story as a tragic fall, Greg framed it as something way darker and way more absurd. And once he said it, it was hard to unsee. And just when you thought the roast was over, Greg turned up the heat. He painted a picture of what it was really like behind Ellen's pastel-colored setlist, like a talk show and more like a dystopian workplace comedy gone wrong. In Greg's version of The Ellen Show, staff wore helmets, nobody spoke without permission, and every dance break was replaced with an HR briefing. He wasn't just making jokes, he was dragging the entire illusion out into the sunlight. He said Ellen didn't build a talk show, she built a fortress. One covered in glitter and smiles, but inside? Fear, tension, and people doing emotional gymnastics just to survive the day. The most brutal part? Greg called out the way Ellen handled her exit. She told the Today Show her decision to end the show had nothing to do with the bad press. According to her, the real reason was that the show wasn't challenging anymore. Greg compared that to the Titanic, saying it didn't sink, it just decided to go swimming. And he wasn't wrong. The timeline was clear. After the backlash, after the viral clips, after the ratings crash, then she announced the show would end. And instead of owning up to it, she gave a sugar-coated reason that didn't fool anyone. Greg made it clear Ellen wasn't being pushed out unfairly. She was finally facing the consequences of years of faking it. And the audience was done clapping. But this wasn't just about Ellen's bad behavior. It was about why she got away with it for so long. Megyn came back with another brutal point. If Ellen had been anyone else, especially someone with different politics, she would have been gone after the first accusation. No second chances, no Netflix special, no soft media coverage. She asked a simple but powerful question. Why does Hollywood only cancel the people who step on the wrong toes? Why do some celebrities get a gentle rehab arc, while others are thrown out for far less? Ellen wasn't canceled for saying something controversial. She was called out for treating people like garbage for years. And yet, somehow, the media still wrapped her in bubble wrap. Megyn said this wasn't about holding Ellen to an impossibly high standard. It was about holding her to any standard at all. She wasn't angry that Ellen existed. She was angry that no one had the guts to call her out until it was too late. And even then, the response was watered down. While Ellen's fans clung to the "Be Kind" slogan, Megyn reminded everyone what really matters: how you treat people when no one's watching. And behind the scenes, Ellen's set was a disaster zone-crying interns, miserable producers, and an army of assistants who learned how to avoid eye contact better than trained spies. It wasn't kindness. It was fear wrapped in glitter. For Megyn, this wasn't just a story about one celebrity. It was a story about a system that rewards fake smiles and punishes truth. And Ellen was its perfect example. Now let's talk about the final act of Ellen's empire, how it all slowly collapsed while the world watched. The ratings didn't just dip, they crashed. Audience numbers dropped like a rock, and even the celebrities who once lined up to appear on her couch started ghosting her. That familiar energy, the clapping, the dancing, the feel-good buzz was gone. Instead, what we got was a farewell season that felt more like a forced retirement party. Greg Gutfeld compared it to a hostage, video bright colors, fake plants, and Ellen reading from a teleprompter like someone counting the seconds until it was over. The joy was gone, the laughs were hollow. You could feel it, even through the screen. And then there were the apologies. Oh, the apologies. Ellen stood on stage and delivered a masterclass in non-apology. If I made anyone feel, that's how she started. Greg jumped on that immediately. That kind of language doesn't admit guilt. It shifts the blame onto how others felt. It's like saying, sorry you were offended, instead of saying, I messed up. Megyn wasn't buying it either. She called it what it was, PR fluff. Carefully polished words stitched together by a team of handlers trying to save a legacy that was already in pieces. While Ellen talked about being devastated, people behind the scenes were still remembering the culture of fear they lived under for years. This wasn't a fall from grace. It was a slow unraveling of a fake story, and once the truth came out, no amount of dancing could patch it up. As Ellen quietly slipped off the air, Megyn and Greg weren't just watching, they were pulling apart every thread. Megyn kept hammering the media's role in shielding her. She pointed out how news outlets acted like Ellen's apology was gospel, like just saying, I'm kind, erased years of toxic behavior. But behind the polished words, Megyn saw something LC panic-stricken PR campaign dressed up as remorse. She said Ellen's monologue didn't sound heartfelt, it sounded rehearsed. Like it had been tested on focus groups, rewritten by lawyers, and delivered with just enough tears to look real but not enough to seem guilty. It wasn't an apology, it was damage control. Meanwhile, Greg took the whole circus and turned it into a roast. He joked that Ellen's green room deserved its own horror movie, that her final season felt like a party no one wanted to attend. And those celebrity friends who used to praise her? Suddenly, they had other plans. Some posted half-hearted Instagram captions that read like legal statements. Others vanished completely, like they'd been wiped from her phone overnight. Greg even joked that HBO rejected a show idea based on Ellen's backstage chaos because it was too dark. The silence from Hollywood was louder than any headline. The same stars who used to treat Ellen like royalty suddenly forgot she existed. The glitter faded, and all that was left was an empty set, a broken brand, and the growing feeling that Ellen's empire was built on something far from kindness. As the spotlight faded, Ellen packed up her multi-million-dollar mansion in Montecito and jetted off to England with her wife, Portia. Some claimed it was a political move, others said it was just another way to escape the fallout. But back in the States, Megyn and Greg were still circling the wreckage, asking the one question no one else dared to. Why was she ever allowed to get away with this in the first place? Megyn didn't hold back. She said it flat out Ellen got a pass because of who she was. A progressive icon, a cultural symbol. She didn't violate any of Hollywood's sacred cows. She wasn't caught saying something racist, sexist, or anti-LGBTQ. No, her only crime was being nasty. And in Tinseltown, nastiness is practically part of the job descriptions, long as you smile pretty and vote the right way. Greg jumped in with one of his signature burns, saying the only reason Ellen left was because the audience stopped clapping. Not because she grew tired, not because the show got easy, but because people finally started paying attention to what was really going on behind that big, goofy grin. He even said if Donald Trump somehow caused Ellen's downfall, then maybe that was his greatest achievement. Brutal. The double standard was clear. Regular bosses get fired for treating employees like garbage. Ellen? She got Emmy Awards and a gift basket from Apple. The whole thing wasn't just unfair, it was laughable. Or it would be if real people hadn't been suffering in silence for nearly 2 decades. And here's where the story really hit a nerve. Greg laid it out perfectly. Hollywood had become a zoo. A bizarre place where bad behavior is forgiven as long as you wear the right hashtag, say the right things, and post the right filtered selfies. And Ellen, she wasn't the queen of daytime TV anymore. She was the zookeeper who forgot to lock the gate. Greg and Megyn don't usually agree on much, but on this, they were in sync. Greg joked that when they agree, you know something's seriously wrong. Ellen had built her empire on being nice, but once the curtain was pulled back, it turned out nice was just the costume. Underneath it all was a machine fueled by fear, power, and silence. Megyn wasn't interested in canceling Ellen. What she wanted was honesty, real accountability. She wanted the media to stop pretending that someone who hands out blenders and hugs celebs should automatically be seen as morally perfect. She called out the fantasy for what it was, just that, a fantasy. Because if an average boss treated people like Ellen allegedly did, they'd be fired on the spot. No applause, no Netflix deal, no soft goodbye. And Greg? He roasted every part of it. He joked that working on The Ellen Show was so intense, even her security staff needed therapy puppies. He imagined her farewell episodes as fake retirement parties where no one cared enough to show up. It was a dark comedy, and Ellen was the punchline. The illusion was broken, and no one was dancing anymore. Then came the final nail in the glitter-covered coffin Ellen's grand apology. Or, as Greg and Megyn both pointed out, the performance of an apology. Standing under studio lights, reading from a teleprompter, Ellen delivered a speech that sounded more like a poorly written drama script than any real admission of guilt. She said, "If I made anyone feel," and that was enough. Greg instantly tore it apart. That's not owning anything. That's pushing the blame back on the people who were hurt. It's the kind of apology that says, it's your fault for being sensitive, not, I'm sorry for being cruel. Megyn called it exactly what it was, a non-apology, soaked in denial, carefully stitched together by a team of PR professionals. No heart, no responsibility, just damage control with a fresh haircut. It didn't land. Not with the audience, not with former staff. and not with anyone who actually remembered the years of silence and fear backstage. And online, it was brutal. Twitter turned into a roast pit. Reddit dragged her through the mud like a broken vacuum cleaner. Even the Facebook crowd that usually just posts cat photos was done clapping. The public had moved on from believing Ellen to doubting everything about her. The smiling, dancing, talk show queen had turned into a walking reminder that not every nice face is a kind one, and that once trust is broken, even 1,000 apologies can't tape it back together. Especially when those apologies come wrapped in designer clothes and fake humility. By the time Ellen's final episode aired in 2022, it didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like a quiet sigh of relief. The studio was filled with fake plants and forced smiles, but the spark that once defined her show was gone. No buzz, no real emotion, just a slow fade to black like a balloon losing air. The ratings flatlined. The guests, mostly forgettable. The applause, hollow. Even her famous celebrity friends, the same ones who used to line up just to be seen on her couch, had disappeared. Former guests ghosted. Some didn't even acknowledge the finale. The only ones who seemed sad were the teleprompters, missing being read with fake joy. Ellen walked away with her sneakers and her millions, but the halo was gone. No one was talking about her legacy. They were talking about her lies. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly was thriving off network TV, fully in control of her own platform, and gaining millions of listeners who preferred real talk over glittery pretense. Turns out, the audience was done with sugar-coated celebrity fluff. They wanted truth even if it came with sharp edges. And Greg? He was on fire. His late-night show Gutfeld became a surprise ratings monster. People wanted sarcasm, real commentary, and someone to laugh at Hollywood's constant absurdity. Greg gave them exactly that. The nice, safe Ellen show era was over. People didn't want hugs anymore, they wanted honesty, even if it stung. Because the world had changed. And kindness without truth? That wasn't enough anymore. In the end, Ellen's empire didn't crash, it crumbled slowly under its own weight. 19 seasons of staged kindness, celebrity selfies, and dance breaks couldn't hold up against the truth leaking out from behind the scenes. And as more stories surfaced, the picture became clear. Ellen didn't fall from grace with a dramatic bang. She slid off stage with a fake smile and a carefully timed fade-out. Her final bow wasn't triumphant. It was awkward, like watching someone try to end a party that no one showed up to. And once the cameras stopped rolling, Ellen vanished into luxury, no consequences. No real accountability. Just another Hollywood star pretending nothing happened. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly moved on like a bullet. She dropped another podcast episode, took aim at the next media illusion, and never looked back. She understood something the mainstream still doesn't. People are tired of fake, tired of pre-written apologies, red carpet masks, and fake empathy that disappears the second the cameras shut off. Greg Gutfeld kept doing what he does, bestrosting anyone bold enough to say influencer with a straight face. For him, Ellen's downfall wasn't just a scandal, it was comedy gold. But beneath the sarcasm was a real truth. The public isn't fooled anymore. The glitter's peeled off. The audience isn't clapping on cue. Ellen sold kindness like it was a brand. But kindness without action? That expires fast. And when the lights went out on her set, all that was left was the echo of a smile no one trusted anymore. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.